to the Utah Puck Report. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, your friend in hockey. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray, where you're not just, you're not just a customer, you're part of the family. When you're part of the family, it's super easy to get your car or truck serviced. Just stop in. And if you don't have a Larry H. Miller Toyota right now, just go to Murray, check them out, or you can check them out online at larryhmillertoyota.com. Guest today, good friend of mine, been on the show a few times, did some pregame stuff. My good buddy, Adrian Denny. Adrian, how are you?
Hey Jay, it's great to be back. Thanks for having
Good.
me, man.
It's so good to have you because, you know, there are a lot of hockey analysts that you can talk to that will read up and you know, they are students of the game, but like you understand the game. You've been just so into the game and immersed in the game for so long. I think it's just second nature for you now. And I think it's easy for you to look at a situation and see, like you have the coach's eye. You can see who should be in that situation. So that's why I'm gonna harass you and pick your brain for some upcoming information.
Couldn't be more excited to talk hockey.
How's your summer been? Do you actually get away from hockey during the summer?
Yeah, it's been great being back in Utah on a permanent basis and enjoying our mountains and our lakes and going out for the morning runs and I live up in Holiday. And so I've got a great trail that takes me to the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon, and I do that every single morning. And then you get back and do some computer work and return some emails, and guess what? It's time for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's kind of been my life. I can't believe we haven't played since April 15th, and it's what recording this June 11th
Yeah.
and we're getting ready for game four of the Stanley Cup final. So it's been almost 2 months. It seems a lot longer than that, but it's been fun. And don't ask me what I'm going to do for my daily routine when hockey ends in this final here because I have no idea.
Well, that must be nice because you and I have talked about it before. When you're the guy in the East Coast League, you're all the guys in the East Coast League. You do everything, and then you maybe get a little less responsibility or maybe a little more help in the AHL, but you're not when you're working your way up. You're not just a broadcaster. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're filling water bottles and doing everything else to support the team because we've seen what it's like, right? You do tons of stuff on a small budget and you do more with less. And I've watched you work your tail off for a long time. So I hope you get a nice long summer after this.
Thanks. It's the NHL is the NHL. It's a great life.
Yeah.
It's everything you dream of. So it's great to be here and I talked about it with folks along the way and probably the most with our AHL coach in Tucson, Steve Potvin. Like me and him kind of had similar paths to where we are in ECHL, AHL. He played in Europe and different life experiences, different job experiences, and I said to him like I wouldn't trade one single second of this last year mid-season when we're going through it 16, 17, 18-hour days and doing lots of stuff and he's like I wouldn't either and it's who we are and it's what we became and everybody has a different path and couldn't be happier for mine with the Grizzlies and the Roadrunners and being here with the Mammoth now has been just awesome and a dream come true.
Yeah. I bet. And it's funny because you don't realize it at the time, but like, man, you're busting your butt. You're doing all these little things. And you're like, I got to do more just to put food on the table and keep a roof over my head. And you kind of think maybe you're doing it long term, but then all of a sudden you something happens, you pop your head up for a minute and you look and you're like, I have a resume and like I've done all this stuff. So if an NHL team comes calling, I can do all that stuff. It's you earn the experience, and it's one of those things that maybe while you're getting the experience, you don't realize how much it'll benefit you in the future.
Yeah, for me it was about the mentality of being where your shoes are every day and being in the moment and being the best and building Tucson into a great hockey market is, it's one of my favorite stories of my career, my 6 years there, and how we built that, and building the Grizzlies from an organization that just kept growing every year and kept building attendance every single year when I was here. That took a lot of pride in that, and still really close and pay attention and watch every Grizzlies game I can, and still care deeply about the community in Tucson, and everything we did there, and love it. But at the other end of it, the second component is there wasn't a day during any of that, especially during the 6 seasons in Tucson, because I was so close to the NHL that I didn't think about being in the NHL 24/7, 365. So being where my shoes were, winning the moment, winning the day, but never losing sight of where you want to be is the mentality that they tell the players too. You gotta clear this hurdle, and to get to the next step.
Yeah, the only way to get there is to be good here or to be the
Yeah.
best here, one of the
Yep.
best. Um, Speaking of that, we've got a lot to talk about here. I want to get into um kind of looking back at last season, and probably better than most what we have in the pipeline as far as who's in Tucson that has a chance of making the roster this year, or there's so much talk about Boot and Simashev making the roster this upcoming season. There's a ton of talk about free agency, and there's a couple big names. You know who I want. I think
Yeah.
you kind of feel the same. Uh, but watching Bennett perform in the Stanley Cup playoffs and seeing how much cap space Florida has, I don't see a chance that they actually let him go. Um, I think maybe if he wasn't as good as he was right now, that we could have had a chance. I don't know. I just posted an interview with the Florida coach, and they're talking about how important he was. And he's like, "Oh, who's Sam Bennett? You mean the guy with like?" And he lists off all these major diseases that he's incurable, and he's
it,
like, "Yeah, I don't think anybody else wants him." So
that
they're
was
gonna want to.
hilarious.
Yeah, I thought it
That
was
was in the
pretty.
middle of a game. That
That's
was I
he. He's always been an amazing interview on those like mid game. He doesn't care. He's just throwing one liners.
Yeah, he's a prize. He's a really good coach and a good interview. And Jackie Redmond with Turner just does a phenomenal job talking to the coaches and the players during intermissions, in game, and it's like she's just having a casual conversation with them. And that's really been one of the things that I've enjoyed here in the Stanley Cup final, with Turner having all the action.
She was so quick too, because she's like, "Hey, that was the play of the game right there." Like she awarded him play of the game just for that comment too. So yeah,
Yeah.
she's great interview, great interview. Um, I just lost my page. I was looking at my main thing from last year where I thought the Mammoth could improve for this upcoming season is the power play, and the same kind of force transfers into overtime wins. Because when you break it down, the overtime losses we had, if you look at the overtime losses, they if we would have won those, we probably would have made playoffs, right? But if you look at who we lost to, who scored the goals, Crosby, Bedard, like the biggest names, biggest goal scorers in the NHL are the ones that beat us in overtime. So we have to walk away taking some kind of, I don't know, like a pat on the back, or one of those. It was a win, kind of like it was good that we got the overtime and then we got the loss, but we're losing to the biggest names in the NHL. What do you think has to happen to make our power play better and to make us a little bit better in overtime?
Those are two really good questions, Jay. I
I'm,
I
I'm starting
heard
you off with the best ones.
I heard Andre Tourney on our Nashcast podcast earlier today with Tyson Nash and Mike Folta, and they said you guys were so close against Edmonton, LA, Florida, and he's like, yeah, but we didn't win, so we have to find a way to win those games. And you're exactly right on the 3-on-3 and on the power play. And I look at this off season in two different components. Do you remember in training camp last year? In fact, let's go all the way back to the off season last year
Okay.
when Utah entered draft week without a single defenseman signed.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And then we get to training camp and Andre says, we know we're going to score a lot of goals. Can we keep the puck out of our own net? And that's what we saw the first three games. You win 5-2 against Chicago, the overtime win against the Islanders, overtime win against the Rangers. Oh, power play goals, 3-on-3 goals. And then Dursey got hurt. And when
Yeah.
Dursey got hurt, it was a complete shift. Utah changed the way that they played overnight because they had to.
Oh,
And if they didn't, they were going to go from winning games 5-4, 6-5 to putting the goaltender in a situation every night where he's got to do something to keep from giving up 7-8 goals, right? We're without Dursey. We're without Marino. Maverick Lamoureux is bursting onto the NHL scene, but we had to change how we played to start playing 2-1 games, 3-2 games, right? To try and win those games. And it's a shift. It's a different mentality. So we went from 3 games like, gosh, we're going to score 5 or 6 every night to we can't give up 7 or 8 every night. And we've got to find a way to win these games 2-1. So that shift in mentality, you can't change it overnight when Dursey, Marino, Gunther, Cooley come back from their injuries. We were kind of in a spot and we were having success. We finished, you know, on the border of where we wanted to be in terms of points to make the playoffs. Not over it, little under it. So I think going into this offseason, I think you can look back at last year and be like, okay, we got that defense first style down. We didn't score how we did the first 3 games and how we were expecting. I think that as you look at that and as you look at other guys going from first year, second year to third year, I think that'll solve a lot of offensive concerns before we even get to free agency, who's next up in the AHL. Does that make sense? Because I watched the game and then I hear the experts tell me about the advanced numbers and
right.
what I saw last year and what the advanced numbers said in terms of, boy, how are we not scoring an extra goal a game equated with what I saw. And as you looked at a player like Lawson Krause, who didn't get to 20 goals for the first time in 3 years, I think you see things normalize there. One thing Bill said on our Nashcast podcast in the first episode last week, we'd like to get some more scoring. And you hear that Utah is very, very active, right? In the trade wins talk of free agency, trade options. We heard that at the trade deadline too. And there was nothing that got Bill to move. And the reason that Utah is in the discussion as a team that's active in everything is involved is because they've got one of the best prospect pools and they've got more draft picks and they have cap space. So, of course, Bill's going to be on the phone talking and listening. But is he going to make a move? What's going to be the magnitude of a move that Bill makes in terms of free agency? Over the last year, he's had to temper Utah to this is what last year was year 4 of a build. Yes, we have the cap space. We don't want to spend it all at once because we've got guys coming up that we want to get re-signed. Logan Cooley is the next. Clayton Keller's not under contract forever, right? So you don't want to get to the point where you made a big splash and then you can't re-sign your core guys. So that's why I think there's so much buzz about Utah because of the prospect system, the draft picks, and the cap space. If Bill sees something that he falls in love with, he's going to pull the trigger on it. But if he doesn't, don't be shocked and don't get discouraged that he had a July 1st like last year where he added Ian Cole and Kevin Stenlin. Because I think if you look at the offense for Utah, here's what I see. And the player that you've brought up, Sam Bennett, there's reports that he wants to stay in Florida. He wants to get re-signed there. They want him back. There's a couple guys on this team that I look at, and one of them metrically kind of adds up to what Sam Bennett does in front of the net, and that's Barrett Hayton.
Oh wow. I thought you were
Okay.
gonna say McBain, but okay.
I'm going to. I'm
Okay.
gonna say McBain.
Okay.
There's three guys I'm gonna say. Barrett Hayton gets in front of the net and he grinds.
Yeah.
Look at where he is. Look at where he scores his goals. Look at where he gets his scoring chances. A 5th overall pick in 2018. That's not the role that I envisioned him playing when he got drafted, when he was in his first year pro, second year pro. But I think he can be that guy that gets dirty in front of the net consistently and becomes a guy that takes that goal total and increases it. Logan Cooley is another player that I think, how many times last year did he win a faceoff, go net front, and score a goal
Yeah.
in one of those, uncomfortable areas? I think Logan Cooley has what it takes to be that guy and to increase his scoring total with his skill, but also being that rat in front of the net. I see a little rat in Logan
Really?
Cooley. Just the way he plays. I think he can be that guy. And then you said Jack McBain, double digit goals last year. That's another guy who's not afraid. He's got some skill and he'll bang you. So
He's got some size too, which
yes.
like I
And
think
and
it just looked like
all three of those guys have that size. They're not 5'7", 5'8". You're a
yeah.
little taller than me, so I can't do what I do with Mike Fulta, our radio play-by-play announcer, and say he's our size. But they're not our size. They're bigger. So the concern of getting some more goals, how do we need to score some more goals? We need more guys in front of the net. We need to be bigger rats in front of the net. We need to get there. I think you've got guys on the roster that can get there. And that being said, I'm excited to see what options Bill sees out there that potentially can add to that, even if it's not one of the big guys on July 1st for the names that we've heard for the last year. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm saying if it doesn't happen, that's why. And here's why you should feel good about it.
So not Marner, not Bennett, but maybe because there are some other good names that are out there: Duchesne, Tavares, Brock Nelson. Those are guys that could be picked up. Wait, Brock Nelson just got re-signed.
He re-signed with Colorado.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had him on my list, but I'm like, oh wait, he just got re-signed. But so with Tavares, Duchesne, Brandon Montour, there are guys that you could have like a
Yeah.
lot
And that,
cheaper, a lot. You don't have to lock up a lot of money for a lot of years, and you do have a lot of depth in the system that can develop into those players you want. And that's what Bill's been building the whole time, right?
yeah, I think so. And Jay, with the salary cap going up this year, everybody's going to have more money, and it's not the best free agent class
No.
ever. And Utah is not going to be the team that goes out and overpays for somebody. And I think there's teams that are going to go out and feel pressure to go out and overpay for somebody with the bigger cap space, but with the lower free agent class that I think it's not the best. Um, so there's guys out there, right? There's a couple big names, but I don't think it's the best. And I don't think Utah's going to rush into anything. And I think Bill has everybody comfortable that we don't have to go take a big swing, overpay, and then compromise ourselves down the road to not be able to re-sign a core guy because we went out, took a big swing. Bill said it before, and he says it with a big grin on his face. The team that wins in the summer doesn't always win in the winter, and you know exactly who he's talking about.
Oh yeah.
Nashville from last
Yeah,
year went out. They
man.
took two big swings, bottom 5 team in the NHL last year. Utah is not going to do that. And they're comfortable knowing that they don't have to. And they also know that they're not at a point yet where they are a piece away, right? They know they're not a piece away from winning a Stanley Cup. They know they're going to have to make the playoffs, learn those hard lessons, go back and then maybe you go get that rental at the deadline. You pay a little bit more for a guy on a short-term deal because you know you're in your window. We're not in that window right now, and
Right.
and we
And
know that.
we've got a ton of guys. Like if you look at the roster and look at how many top 10 picks we have and that they've had time to develop and get better, and then you bring in like what they've done with Ian Cole and Mata and bringing in guys like this, it's just like, all right, we're built to get better. And I see so many rumors and I see so many things get up there. And I even chimed in on one of them. Somebody just put up this trade rumor, and I just said, yeah, I can make up things too. Like you can say whatever you want during the summer. There's no, I don't know. Seems like there's no rhyme or reason for a lot of these things, or maybe people are just trying to wish their favorite player onto this team. But when you look at the way the team's built and the fact that they're being patient with, hey, we set out with building it this way. We're gonna keep putting these pieces into place and let them mature, let them cook, let them get better, put them in high pressure situations when they're young, so that they're older and they're in the playoffs, they're more prepared. When you bring up Barrett Hayton and you look at his international play, like he's a guy that's done it on the international level. And you're right, he's been a pest in front of the net internationally. And I would like to see that more in the NHL, but you're right. He could be that guy. McBain can be that guy. So the more I started looking at it, I knew Bennett was a guy that I thought we could bring in right now that could stay here for 5, 7 years and be exactly what we needed. But if we don't go out and get a guy like that, it's okay. It's still a game plan. The plan is the plan.
Yeah, and Jay, we haven't even talked about Daniil Boot and Dmitry Simashev yet.
Right.
The the two the two guys drafted in 2023, less than 2 years ago. Dmitry Simashev, 6'5" defenseman, more size, and we've got a lot of size in the pipeline. Dmitry Simashev, Bill pointing out Thomas Lavoie, who was drafted 4th round last year. He's a big kid. Maverick Lamoureux. Mav had another tough year with the injuries last year. The kid just hasn't gotten a break, but is still very highly thought of. So you've got the size on D. That's coming. Now let's talk about Daniil Boot, the 12th overall pick in 2023. He's 6'6". Bill compared him to Tage Thompson.
Yeah.
Tage Thompson in Buffalo, the last 4 years, has had almost a 30-goal season, high 20s, a 30-plus goal season, and 2 40-plus goal seasons. So you want to talk about creating offense, getting to the net, and your GM just compared him to Tage Thompson? That's another guy that
Yeah.
we've already got here that's ready to go on an entry-level contract. So
Yeah, 3 years, less than $1 million a year for both of those guys.
yep.
I mean, I was talking about that on a show a couple of weeks ago. I don't think people understand how much that helps us cap space wise, and how much that helps us immediately with having a little bit of grit in the roster.
Huge. So, and Bill thinks those guys could be NHL ready. And I might be underselling that. So, uh, that's really exciting. But but another thing, I'm just to temper everything, right? Um, you get draft grades and everybody reacts, and you've heard the stories about the combine and the fun stories that you've gotten coming out of that, and who's taking who to dinner and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. But one thing Bill didn't point out before I get to my main point here, one thing Bill pointed out earlier this week was they're not just taking one player to dinner typically. There's a long table. They have 7, 8, what have you, prospects that they're taking to dinner. It's not just Utah took blank to dinner, but they also took 6 or 7 other guys typically in most cases. So keep that in mind. But in 2023, when Bill drafted Dmitry Simashev and Daniil Boot um, in the top 12, they didn't get A pluses for those picks from the quote unquote experts because
Right.
nobody saw those guys play. It was right around the time that the conflict in Ukraine started with Russia. So that limited travel for scouts wanting to watch players in Russia. And it was also a couple years removed from COVID as well, when travel was restricted and most of the scouting was done remotely. Bill Armstrong and his staff found a way to get to Belarus to watch those two players, Dmitry Simashev and Daniil Boot, playing in their under 18 tournament that they were in. Utah and New Jersey, or Arizona at the time, and New Jersey were the only two teams that were there watching that tournament. And they felt that those were the two best guys in the draft to take. And they were one of two teams that had actually seen them play. Nobody knew about them. So you
So
just
those could have been first overall picks, maybe. Like if more people would have seen them and the
yeah,
competition would have been up.
you
Oh,
got to think they would have been higher. But
wow.
the legwork that the Bill put in, and you talk about prospects and you hear names and fun stories coming out of the combine. I don't think that we've done a good enough job of introducing to the folks here in Utah who Bill Armstrong has in charge of amateur scouting. He's got Daryl Plandowski, um, who was the assistant director of amateur scouting for Tampa Bay when they built that from the ground up. And he's got Ryan Jankowski, who he says has got more experience amateur scouting than anybody on earth, who they got from Buffalo. He's been with the Islanders. He's been with some other teams. And so Utah has a pretty good wealth of experience in terms of amateur scouting. Guys that have picked out Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther, Simashev, Boot, um, Tija Ginla, Kobo Dwayne, right? So those the guys behind the scenes, and then there's a list of about 20 other guys who also are watching these kids play every single night.
So you bring up Kobo Dwayne, and that's another guy that I wonder because I saw him in juniors, I saw him here, and he seems like a kid that has like he's about ready. Like it seems like, and I know he hasn't played in the A yet. And what do you expect him to make the roster this year? Or does it feel pretty comfortable that he's going to be in the A this year?
Here's the situation there, Jay. So Cole is 19 right now.
Yep.
He doesn't turn 20 until April 24th, 2026. So he can play in the NHL next year. Anybody can. He can't play in the AHL until 26, 27.
Right,
because
right,
of,
right.
because of a rule between the National Hockey League and the junior leagues that a player who's played junior hockey in North America cannot play in the American Hockey League until the calendar year of his 20th birthday. So with Cole being April of 2006, he can't play in the AHL until the 2026-2027 calendar year because it's December 31st or before. You have to be 20.
Okay.
So that's a rule. There's a lot of opinions on it. Um, but he can play in the NHL, but he can't play in the AHL until 26-27, which is unfortunate. Did I just express an opinion?
Are you not
After
allowed to?
after a year, Jay, where he had 51 points in 52 games, had 62 points in 67 games last year in the OHL,
Yeah.
13 points in 16 playoff games this year. So uh
He's got
that's
size, he's got grit, he's got
yeah,
everything you want. And he's either there, he's either in the show or he's back in juniors. I didn't realize his birthday was that late. I just,
yeah.
that's funny. I just go, hey, I got drafted a year ago. He spent another year in
Oh,
juniors. And then you just kind of think, oh, he'll be in the A or not. Because, that's great. I have no problem with him going back to juniors because that doesn't count against his 3 years. Right. So
right,
then
right.
let him,
Yeah.
let him go, but let him go there and be part of the big plan.
Yeah. And from a development standpoint, you just as the NHL club, you're like, gosh, we'd love to have this guy in the AHL now playing against NHL players. And he's in the junior leagues playing against 15,
Yeah.
16, 17 year olds.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. That's the rule. It's one of the things with the NHL and the draft and not getting guys immediately um playing typically like you do in the NBA. But that is just one rule to watch out for there.
But that's the great thing about Shimashev and Boot is that they played in the KHL. They didn't go
Yeah,
back to juniors. They weren't developing against kids. They're in the KHL, which is some say better than the AHL, barely under the
sure.
NHL. It's grown men that have got a lot of experience. They get paid big bucks over there. So some of them would rather stay in Russia than come to the US and play in the NHL. They make more. So because they're getting all that oil money. So you could see more development there, and notoriously with what like with Austin Matthews, who didn't want he went and played against men in Sweden to develop to become a first overall pick, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
that brings up a great
that's
point.
no, totally. That's what Austin Matthews did because he just to go play among the best. So we had an instance JJ Moser who was drafted in the same round as Josh Doan back in 2021, was it? Yeah, drafted right behind Josh Doan in 2021 was a native of Switzerland and played in Switzerland, never played in North American juniors. So when Bill drafted him in 2021, we were able to have him in AHL camp the next year. The year he was drafted, he was in NHL camp. He came to play for us in Tucson in the AHL, played 18 games and never saw him again and got called up to the NHL and he's been off and running since. That's a name that folks probably don't recognize, but he was used to deal in the Mikhail Sergachev deal. But an example where a player that you get from Europe didn't play North American juniors, you're able to put him right to work.
And when you talk about that, that's one of the things I want people to think about too, because when people start dropping hopes like let's trade for this guy, let's trade for this guy, and I say all the time, okay, who are you going to give up?
Yeah.
Because giving up Moser and I'm forgetting the other guy's name that we give up.
Connor Geeky.
Geeky.
Yeah.
Those are two players that you can tell Bill loved those players. And it's like you draft them, they become your family, and then you see another piece that fits your team, and the other team wants those little pieces of your family. And it's like, I get it, it's a business. and this piece fits there, so let's get that piece and give up these pieces. But when you draft them, they're your family. You have so much hope for them, and then you go watch them play for Tampa and do well. It's got to sting a little bit. Not that you would change it because Sergachev has been amazing for us. But when people are talking about going out and making trades, and I know you've seen, I know how you feel about Michelli, and I know you
Yeah.
know he's got so much up potential. And right now, like if you get on anywhere online that's talking about the Mammoth, they're talking about him being trade bait, basically. That's gotta, I don't know, it just cuts a little bit. You like him as a person and you love him as a player.
Oh, I've made Connor McDavid comparisons to Matthias Michelli, but
Really?
he's put up 20 goals in the NHL. Last year was a tough year for him. Everybody has years like that. Not everybody, but it's common, and there was more depth, and he was in a different role, and there's just only so many spots. But that's why Utah is always mentioned as being, oh, Utah's active. Utah could take a swing because of guys like JJ Moser, Connor Geeky. You've got Matthias Michelli on the roster. Like, people call about good players and draft capital and cap space to make deals work. So
Yeah. Uh, Talking about draft, the Brady Martin all of a sudden is on everybody's radar. And before the combine, before everything else, it seemed like he was anywhere between 10 to 15 ranked on the
right.
pre-draft rankings. And now if you look at a few of the mock drafts, I'm looking at one right now that is where'd that mock draft go? Bleacher Nation has him going high. A lot of people have. Well, it's crazy, right? Like a lot of people think he's going to go high. A lot of people think Utah is going to take him, unless somebody like Hagen's or Misa's available. What's your vibe? I don't know if I'm using that word right. I hear all the kids use that word quite a bit.
I think that's perfect. I think you used it right. I think that's good.
I'm an old
You
balding
didn't
guy
even have
trying to
to.
use
You
the
could
word
have just
vibe.
said it, man. It would have sounded cool.
No, everybody knows I'm not cool. Um, what are you getting? What's the vibe like? And if you're going into the draft, it's your pick. What kind of a player are you trying to bring in, knowing that a fourth overall pick could be on the roster this season? That's the expectation. Top three, top five should play in the NHL this season. Could play in the NHL this season.
The draft is such a lot. Um, because you read the mock drafts and you hear the stories, and it was a lot of fun hearing Brady Martin talk about growing up on the farm and being farm tough, and
Yeah, I heard that part. Yeah,
seeing the highlights. I don't know if I can give you a good answer because 95% of the time, 99% of the time, guy you're going to draft, you're not going to see him in the NHL for a year or two or three.
yeah,
And at that point, you know, are are you drafting are you drafting the same player that you want to go sign in free agency? It's different because you're likely not to see the players that you draft for another year, two or three. And during that time, there's a lot of development, there's a lot of maturing, there's a lot of growing into your body that can take place, which is why Bill's got that scouting staff of dozens that are watching these guys, talking to them, getting to know their families, seeing how they work out, looking at just hours and hours and hours of video and watching them in person. So it's tough to make that call. And it's also a bargaining chip right now.
yeah,
Utah is also, quote unquote, being very active. They could, quote unquote, make a big splash because people are calling about the fourth overall pick right now too. So it's the amateur scouting guys love this. They love this time of year because their body of work is showcased. So it's hard when we're watching NHL every single night of the week, and you and me, Jay, are watching AHL
Love the A.
on the laptop with the NHL on the main screen. And then all of a sudden they want us to go do mock drafts for 18-year-old kids. I don't know what to tell you other than
You don't have enough time to watch all the junior games too?
other than you've got your body of work in our first round picks under Bill Armstrong, Tisha Ginla, Cole Beaudoin, Dmitry Simashev, Daniil Boot, Logan Cooley, Connor Geeky, Maverick Lamoureux, Dylan Gunther. I would say that that's pretty good. And I would say whoever you get, you're going to be happy with, given that track record.
All right, so I just pulled up Bleacher Nation. Bleacher Nation has Utah trading the 4th pick to the Boston Bruins for a first round pick in 2026 and the 7th pick overall this year. And it says they still get Brady Martin at the 7th pick. I don't know. That's pretty bold to say that they'd give up the 4th pick, but they've done stuff that surprised us in the past. Last year, I thought I knew for sure who we were going to draft.
What'd you think?
Z Booyam. 100%. Like, it made sense to me. He was going to be available. He was a player. I thought he was the best player not in the NHL last year. And when they announced Iginla, I was surprised, but I'm not saying I was disappointed because I know they know way more than I do, but I was surprised. Were you surprised by that pick? Do you expect, two-part question. Were you surprised by that pick? Do you figure you're going to be surprised by this year's pick?
I don't know that I know enough to be surprised. It's because you know me, Jay. If you listen to Hockey Night in Utah, I've got my hot takes. My boss calls them bold statements. And when I'm breaking those games down and previewing games, I'm 100% sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I just don't know enough. Andre Turney said on our Nashcast podcast, he's like, unless you've seen every single player, how do you compare so and so to so and so if you've only seen one? Right.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one thing that I can't give you a hot take and a bold statement on because I just don't know. There's so much information, there's so much video, and it could be 1, 2, 3 years down the line before the guy's NHL ready. So what don't you have right now that you got to go get, right? So
Yeah.
it's taking the best
And can an
player.
18-year-old do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Bill says he takes the best player. By the way, have you ever, at the end of the season, do you go back to your hot takes and give a percentage of rights and wrongs?
I think
Do
I
you
was
keep
100.
stats on yourself?
Okay. So this year, all right, I promised the home record would equalize the road record by the time the year was up.
Oh, bold
We,
statement when we dropped a bunch at home. Yeah.
yeah, in January it was pretty rough. We got there. We did it. We were within 1 to 2 games.
Okay.
I said the St. Louis Blues when they were in that 12-game winning streak and we were down by 4 points with a game in hand. I said, don't worry. They're going to lose 2 in a row at some point. We don't have to worry about that. They did. We didn't go on that winning 8 of 10 that we needed to, but I think I do pretty good. I don't remember anything I was wrong about. I just remember the stuff that I was.
Yeah. I never remember what I was wrong about either. Just ask my wife.
Yeah. Just trying to think. Oh, Lawson Krause, his numbers weren't first half of the season a little light. It's just wait. Next year, he'll be back where he was, 20 plus,
I think a
3 or
lot of that
more.
was
Yeah.
situational though, too, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he wasn't
Different
always
roles.
on. Yeah. He was
Different
playing a
roles.
different role.
Yeah. There was
It's
more
like,
depth. He wasn't top 6 like he
yeah.
had been. So
And I think that goes to what you were talking about before too.
and he also, man, I've never seen a guy with better scoring chances. He creates good scoring chances and the shots just didn't go. So
Yeah,
I think that's another hot take area that I had. But yeah, I think it was pretty good.
good. That's good. I mean,
Guess what? I'm coming back.
that's
They're
good.
bringing me back.
That's I guess the proof's right there.
I guess so.
You knew what you were doing. All right. So can I get you to tell me who you think we're gonna pick? Do you know
I'm not
enough?
even
Have you looked at them?
no, I can't tell you, man, because I don't know. I want to give you a good answer. And if I was giving you an answer, it would be because I've read mock drafts and not talked to our scouting staff because
That's fair.
they're not too available this time of year.
I can.
And
Yeah, we got to
and it
keep
would
that under the veil, right?
and it would be me reading stuff on the hockey news and thinking, "Oh, that sounds good."
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
There's also a possibility that it gets dealed, that they trade it. It's a
Yeah,
huge bargaining chip right now.
especially if you think you've got enough in the pipeline right now,
Yeah.
and you're like somebody's gonna give us something more.
What helps us get to 94 points next year?
Right.
And
Is it
is
an
this
eight? Is it a fourth? Is it that like I guess
this
if it's Misa or Schaefer available, then you keep it. Otherwise, you deal it.
if this person, hypothetically, if we can make a deal, somebody that can help us get to 94 points next season, 98 points the next season, 104 points the season after that, or yeah, I think that's what it takes to move that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And that's what I've been thinking too. People ask me all the time if I'd keep it or trade it, and I usually just say keep it, but
It's not going to be for a rental. It's not
right.
going to be for an expiring. It's going to be for somebody that becomes part of the core because you're giving up a fourth overall pick.
Yeah. The thing I like about a fourth overall pick is that you can get a guy that has to go back to juniors and you wait a couple of years and then you bring him in after he's cooked a little bit and then you sign him to a 3 year, $950,000 contract. And that doesn't hurt your cap space at all. Like that's to me, it's just free players. That's
Yeah,
better than going and getting a rental player like you're talking about.
100%. And it's why you see teams like Vegas, Colorado, Florida win the Stanley Cup and not be able to re-sign their whole roster again,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you just want to make sure you're in a good position to not make the playoffs one year and then, oh no, what do we do?
Doesn't that blow your mind that looking at Florida and how good they are and what they've done and how they've built that team, the fact that they're going to have 19 million in cap space next year
Crazy.
blows
Yeah.
my mind. Blows my mind. Of course, we gave with the cap space going up $9 million. That's a free legacy player. Like
They've got 19 and they probably need 35 to 40 to keep their group,
not all of it this year though, right?
right?
They only have four. They have three UFAs, right?
They have three, yeah. So that could have been a little high, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think and I know I get crap for this, and I was going to talk to you about this too. So I do get a little bit of heat because I talk about since I've been on the radio, since I've been doing stuff. And before we even had a team, people would say, "Who's going to win the Stanley Cup?" And I say, "The Florida Panthers." The minute they traded for Kachuk, it changed how they would play in the playoffs. I thought
Yeah.
with Barkov, who I think is one of the most complete players in the NHL and doesn't get enough credit. Well, you hear about McDavid and all those other guys, but you don't hear enough about Barkov. But if I'm going into the playoffs, I want Barkov, Bennett, Kachuk. I want those guys going out and doing what they do because I think the playoffs is not the regular season. The regular season, we talk about speed, we talk about pretty play, and the new NHL. But when it gets to the playoffs, it always comes down to the same old thing: grind
Same
out,
old thing.
yeah, grind
Yeah.
out, beat them up, and it's not old school hockey, but it's old school hockey ish. So I think Florida's done a great job. I'd like to see us add that grit and move forward.
Yeah, I think Daniil Boot's a big part of that.
Yeah,
And I think you can watch Cooley and Hayton and McBain grow into it, and that's before we're even adding anything. So
I
That's
just haven't
exciting.
seen that part of Cooley's game. Maybe I wasn't watching close enough. I would love it if he was that player with those hands. Like if he could be,
I I think I think he can do it because he's just such a boss.
yeah. I
Like
don't even
he's
know if I
he-
like if I
he's
was coaching him, I don't know that I'd want him doing it. Because
yeah, yeah.
he's a like he's your skill guy, but skill guys can do it. Mario Lemieux was your skill guy, and
Yeah.
he had no hesitation getting
Yeah,
in front of the net.
I don't think Cooley's afraid of anything, and I think he'll do anything.
Yeah.
I think he's not gonna turn away from anything, and I think the more he does something, the more he likes it, and he's just starving for success however he gets it.
Do you think the coaching staff asks him to grind out plays like that, get in front of the net and be the grinder and the finesse guy?
I just look at where he goes and how he got some of his goals, and
Yeah.
I think you can see more of it.
Yeah. You're right. As always, another hot take. He's right.
Oh, I just you think of stuff and you've got time over the summer and you're like, look, this guy goes to the net hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. He does.
There's more goals coming from that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just an exciting player to watch.
He's
I
fearless. He's fearless. He'll do anything.
I was a little surprised after Boot basically owned Dev Camp and the Dev Camp game that we didn't see like he didn't stick. Is that just because of the Russian deal
He was
or
under contract. Yep.
okay, that's
They
what
were they were
I wondered that.
yeah, Daniil Boot and Dmitry Simashev were both under contract until this year. So to have him in development camp was a bonus
Yeah.
last year.
Perfect. Like I
Yeah.
thought he was amazing. Getting to see him play was amazing. I thought that Owen Allard was amazing in camp. I thought Baudouin was great in camp. So I think, man, it just gets me so excited to think. And I got the video today of seeing the Delta Center renovations, and
Oh yeah.
I'm just getting pumped, man. I'm just getting excited.
It's a good thing to be a part of.
Well, I think that's going to bring this episode to a conclusion. I think we've got a lot of stuff to digest over what we talked about, and we should get together after the draft. Have you back on the
Yeah.
show, and we'll digest that, break it down.
Yeah, I'm here anytime, man.
All right.
Just let me know.
Good friend Adrian Denny, always just a bonus to have you on. You bring such a wealth of knowledge to the show, and I think you make me look smarter. So I like that.
I love coming on, man. So don't ever be a stranger. It's my pleasure, and it's just fun. Killed an afternoon, 2 to 3 in June.
Yeah, perfect. All right, and that is the Utah Puck Report.